Oh, so good to have you join us. And as you know, tomorrow is the 14th. It is Valentine's Day, and hence the shirt. And I've been reliably informed this is not pink, it is salmon. We got our love going here, and we're trying to create this really romantic atmosphere because it's Valentine's Day. And obviously, I want to talk to you about love. But let me first paint a bit of a picture where the day comes from, what's going to happen, and all of that. You see, tomorrow there's going to be a lot of ladies expecting flowers and chocolates and maybe a romantic candlelit dinner, good spoil. There's going to be boys and girls going to school hoping that someone would send them a little letter that says, I love you, will you be my Valentine? But there's going to be a lot of broken hearts tomorrow as well, because not everyone is going to be asked to be someone's Valentine. There's a lot of expectations that are going to be dashed, and a lot of destinies and futures shaped tomorrow, because all that Valentine's Day actually does is feed the economy and mostly break people's hearts and give the world the sort of a sixth sense of what love is. If there was really love, then you should be getting little notes every day, flowers every day. All of that should be part of who we are, not once a year, but who we are every single day of our life. And I remember growing up, and I remember Valentine's Day. It wasn't always something that I faced with joy, more trepidation, because I wanted to be someone's Valentine. But most of the time I was left feeling like Frankenstein instead of someone's Valentine, because I didn't get those notes, and I would send out notes and more often than not get any sort of response. So it broke my self-image down. And I find today even, I know so many people who, they could be 50 or 60 or whatever, and they're still battling with this feeling of not being good enough, unwanted, unloved, because of things like Valentine's Day. Let's look where this originated. Okay? Now there was this priest called Valentine. Obviously they called him Saint Valentine. And he lived in Rome in about 250 AD. Now Rome was controlled by an emperor called Claudius. He was in fact referred to as Claudius the Cruel. He absolutely loved to wage war. And because he was a warlike leader, he continually needed fresh supply of young men. So he came up with this idea that men are more likely to want to go to war if they didn't have love at home, they didn't have a wife at home, and so on. So he outlawed marriage. Now Valentine thought he was crazy, because Valentine understood the biblical concept of marriage, and that marriage was something that was introduced by God. He believed in love and all of these things. So secretly, people were coming to him and getting married still. However, he gets caught out and he gets chucked in jail, waiting to be executed, because he now went against direct order of Claudius. But while in jail, people would come to where he was being held and throw flowers and little notes through the cell window. In fact, one of the guards had a daughter, and the daughter and Valentine became quite good acquaintances, and she would visit him often, and they would sit and talk for hours. And on the day he was to be executed, he wrote her a final little note, and it ended off with, "Love from your Valentine." And that's where this tradition of little notes started. That is where all of this false concept of love started. But that wasn't all. Somewhere along the line, we got it right to introduce a chubby little naked angel with a bow that shoots love arrows, and he was called Cupid. Now, Cupid was actually from Greek mythology, and he was the Greek god of love and desire. And he also had a cruel and an evil side to him, because according to the myths now, he could shoot love arrows, but also he could shoot unrequited love arrows. In other words, a love that will never be responded to. So this poor person was forever in torment, because he had this love for someone, but that love could not be returned. And then over time, he was melted down from this goddess to this chubby little thing. They want to call it an angel, a thing. And we associated over time, we mixed the Valentine story and this Greek God, for lack of a better word, and we mixed them two, and even believers started buying into this whole concept of Valentine and Cupid. And can I be honest with you? It was nothing more, in my opinion, it was nothing more than a cheap and a pathetic attempt at selling a concept of love that doesn't really exist and has no place in our relationships and in our marriages. To me, Cupid is stupid, really stupid, and Valentine's is just manipulating people and causing more heartache and causing people to spend money they don't actually have, because we got this false concept or perception of this is what love is. It builds up people's expectation to literally break them down. That is not love. In fact, love isn't even in the shape of a heart. Love is the cross of Jesus, because for love, he was willing to make a sacrifice, not for one day, but for every single day. That is what love is. Valentine's Day creates expectations. Expectations are very, very hard to live up to, and often you and I are going to be left bitterly disappointed. I mean, ladies, I want to talk to you now. Have you actually considered this? That same lazy old buffalo of yours, be it your boyfriend, be it your husband, your fiancé, that guy who hasn't bothered to put up or put down the toilet seat for 365 days, the one who has left his socks on the floor, the one who after supper just goes and plonks himself down next to the TV, or in front of the TV rather, the one who doesn't hug you enough, doesn't kiss you enough, and hardly ever says he loves you with meaning, you suddenly expect on this day all of that's going to change, and you're going to have this perfect example of what a loving partner should be. You're going to be disappointed. But guys, so are you. Because you see, when we do good as men, we expect a reward. Okay? We expect to be affirmed, we expect to be appreciated, and then we expect our reward, which hardly ever happens. So we also left disappointed because our expectations weren't lived up to, and expectations have got this real knack of killing relationships because they are hardly ever met, because most expectations are in our mind and our partners aren't even aware of them, but we want them to live up to what they don't know and what they can't see. And it hurts relationships. Obviously, we got certain expectations that should be met, like, guys, we need to learn to listen, we need to learn to talk more, we need to share our emotions more. Ladies, sometimes, you need to give us the space to talk and so on. Those are things that we can work on, because those aren't unrealistic expectations. But we've all got our things. All of us are individuals, as well as then our male and female makeup. We've all been shaped differently by moms and dads and teachers and leaders and friends. And so we've all got this value system, or this expectation level. And there's nothing wrong having an expectation, but it can't be something that is set in the bar too high, because that just leads to disappointment. So I want you to really look in your relationships. Are there times when you've been upset because expectations weren't met? I think we need to look within us and realize this point, that our expectations weren't known. So how on earth could they possibly have been met? Now, I've discovered in my 53 years of life, even before I started following and serving Jesus, that there was never one time where His love was something I couldn't comprehend. There hasn't been one time where He didn't, being Jesus, didn't meet my expectations fully. And if Jesus is the personification of love, which He is, then I would be wise in looking to Jesus and discovering from Him what is love, instead of looking at Cupid and Valentines Day and all these other theories and philosophies that men and women have dreamt up over years. I want to go to the source. I want to go to Jesus. Now, we'll get to that. Let me first share this with you. I know I'm talking about relationships, and I know there's people out there that are perhaps single. Now, I want to talk to married men. You got a lot to learn. You need to listen. Married ladies, man, you need to be making notes. You need to listen. But I want to talk to the single girls. And you need to take notes, because I'm going to explain to you the type of man you should be looking for. Okay? To the single guys, I want to talk to you, because you need to know the type of man you have to or need to be to win the heart of the one that you love. And if there's older people out there, pensioners, widows, I don't know, I need you to really listen, because the younger generation is dependent on your wisdom, your impartation of your experience, so that they can be better at marriages than what our generation has been. So though I'm going to be talking about marriage, this is a message for everyone, and we all should be listening and all should be learning. All right? Now, I read a message by Pastor Scott Bales from the Blooming Grove Christian Center, and he said, looking at Jesus, there was 3 types of love that he identified, which I want to get to. But first, we've got to refresh our image of what marriage is. And in his book, psychologist Kevin Leman wrote a book that Sex Begins in the Kitchen. I haven't read it. I just read this part of a story from that book. And the story is of a little boy who meets up with an older lady who used to be their neighbor. And this lady says to him, where is your sister and that young man that she used to go out with? They were so in love. And the little boy looks at her and says, no, they don't talk anymore. Man, the lady is astounded. She says, I'm so sorry to hear that they've broken up. The little boy says, no, they haven't broken up. They got married. That is what we often think about marriage, that when that happens, things change and it becomes dull and becomes boring. And someone else once said, marriage is nature's way of keeping people from fighting with strangers. And I want to tell you, every joke you've heard, everything that has been impressed upon you concerning marriage, all those negative stuff is all wrong. Marriage can be a representation of heaven on earth if we understand the practicalities of love. And we don't take a world view of love, but we take a biblical view of love. We go to the source and we read into what the Bible says love is all about. And if we apply that, man, we're going to change the cities, our towns, because everything in the country, most of the world is going to the dogs because family units have been broken down because marriages aren't strong anymore, because we don't understand love. So, join me as we read Ephesians 5:25-30, and it's quite a long passage, but please just hang in there and listen carefully. Let your heart hear what the Lord is saying. It says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church, and he gave himself up for her, making her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one has ever hated their own body, but they feed and they care for their body, just as Christ does for the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery. But I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband." Now that's a whole mouthful. Now I'm going to start off with the end. You know how a wife respects her husband? When she's got something to respect, when she receives the type of love that she needs that meets her inner spiritual, emotional, and physical needs. She returns love, and that love is connected to respect. But guys, they've got to have something. Ladies, your wives need to have something to respect. Now, this passage, it paints this beautiful picture of what a marriage should be like. But I don't know, to you, to me, it's daunting. And it seems to me almost like, am I going to be able to achieve this? Because let me be honest with you, in the weeks leading up to this message, I haven't always loved my wife right. I haven't always treated her right. I've made mistakes. I've had to repent. I've had to ask for forgiveness because I want to love my wife like the Bible asks of me. I want to respect her. I want to be open with her. And I want her to become just so much more than just a wife. She's my partner in life, and I need to treat her like that. So I took real note of this type of love, and I'm busy applying it to my marriage more and more. And I pray that you can do this with your relationships, and that you would keep this in mind before you enter into relationships. Because if you're not getting this, man, it's not worth it. Then you're destined for a lifetime of regret and dashed hopes. So listen up. Because Jesus loved in three main ways. And the first one was what we call a sacrificial type of love. Now, we've got the image of the cross. So we understand that sacrifice. We understand that Jesus chose to die so that he could win our hearts. We've all got that. And that paints the picture of what we should do as husbands. We should literally be willing to die for our wives. We need to get to a place where we can apply this sort of love and the sacrificial type of love. And in your marriage, in your relationship, it's going to look different to mine, because we're different people, we got our individual personalities and characteristics, but we can all have a sacrificial type of love. And the way we do that, we change the word me to we. Okay? The marriage is not me. The relationship is not me. Everything goes about we. How I behave, how do you feel? What I say, how does that impact you? I always take into account my partner, my wife. You might need to sacrifice many things. I don't know. It's going to be unique for you. You might need to sacrifice some sleep so you can talk to your wife. You might need to sacrifice a hunting trip, or ladies, a shopping spree or whatever, to spend time with your partner, because it's important there. We can't put hobbies and preferences and friends ahead of our partners, and we do that so easily. You see, I can give you example upon example of sacrifices, but you know in your marriage or your relationship what it is that you need to do. At the end of the day, Christ's love for the church was without limits, and we need to be able to love in that way. Now, the second one is a sanctifying love. Now, Jesus died so that we could have a meaningful relationship with God, that we could become holy and righteous in His eyes. And the expectation is that you as a man, okay, and I'm talking to only the guys, you as a man, do the same for your wife. You lead in such a way that she becomes holy and righteous. And the only way you can do that is by becoming the spiritual leader in your home. And we have forsaken that. We've abandoned our duty. And we wonder why we're battling. We wonder why things look like they do. And the country looks like it does. Because we've abandoned our role as spiritual leaders. And we don't really, as men, take our relationship with God seriously, do we? We don't pursue that relationship. Most men are just going through the motions. Some of us, we need to really start taking our faith seriously. And we need to start leading in our home. When we do that, I can guarantee you the climate in your marriage is going to change for the better. Where it's frosty right now, it can be red hot. How do you start? Well, the easiest way to start, guys, is bring your family to church. And you don't just sit here and doze off and have your go into your nothing box. You sit there and you take notes and you talk about it at home. And if you're not there yet, and I want to encourage you, just start praying with your wife. This is critical. Start praying with your wife. They did a study called the Gallup study and looked at 657 different couples. And at the end of this, over a number of years, they found out that the divorce rate amongst couples who prayed together was significantly lower. And it brings to mind that old thing that says people who pray together, or couples who pray together, stay together. That's a good way to start, because praying together promotes a closeness, it promotes an intimacy, and it builds up trust. Please do that. The third type is sensitive love. So we've had a sacrificial love, sanctifying love, and now a sensitive love. See, a Christ-like love involves a sensitive care. Look at your body, okay? You clothe it, you feed it, you give it some comfort, you give it recreation, you give it relaxation. What if we did the same with our relationships? And we poured positive things into our relationship. We meet the desires of our wife. That means we've got to understand our partner. We've got to understand what makes him or her tick. Now I'm going to talk about the wives because the wives' needs are pretty specific. And you can go and you can go do studies on this and whatever. But in Dr. Willard Harley's book, His Needs, Her Needs, he identifies 5 basic emotional needs of women. And these are needs that they actually expect their partner to fulfill. It's an expectation. And if you dash this, you're breaking down her love for you and her respect for you. And the first one is affection. Because affection symbolizes security, protection, comfort, and approval. We need to learn how to love our spouses better. We need to learn how to express love. Valentine's Day does not do it. One day a year does nothing. Okay? You're in a good books for the first 10 minutes, and when you do something stupid, man, there that love goes. But when we're consistently affectionate to our wives, they know where we are, where they are in our pecking order, and it should be just below God. Then they need conversation. Guys, conversation is not, yes dear, every once in a while, or It is listening. It is partaking. It is sharing. We need to learn to talk. Guys want to do in 30 seconds what the woman needs 30 minutes for. That's where the sacrifice comes in. We need to learn to communicate. And then honesty and openness. Tough one. Tough one. But your wife, your husband, needs to be able to trust you completely. Because when trust is gone, love is difficult. And trust has to be earned again. Work hard at that. And then financial security. Now, I know in today's times it's difficult because sometimes the wife earns more, she's the breadwinner, and so on and so on. But the biblical principle is the man should be the provider. It doesn't matter who's bringing the money in. What happens around that money needs to offer security to the wife that you are going to be able to ensure that the family will continuously be provided for by wisely spending and using what is available. And then last, family commitment. She needs to know, and he needs to know, that the family is your first priority. That means you need to share meals. You need to go to church together. You need to play games together. You need to go to walks together. You need to read to your kids. You need to do family stuff before you do friend stuff. Family must become your priority because your wife and your children need a good father to be present. So in conclusion, Cupid is stupid and Valentine's Day is generally just a waste of money. Okay? Because real love is giving up for your partner. Real love is more than gifts. It's your presence. It's your participation. It is your passion. And I'm talking about a passion to love like Christ loved the church. May your relationships really go from strength to strength. I want to hear praise reports. I want to give praise reports as I apply this in my marriage. We need to be doing this, and we need to be talking about the results, because marriage is God's idea, and good marriages paint a picture of a perfect God. Let's work hard at all our relationships. We love you. May you be blessed. I really hope you get the flowers or the chocolates. But more than that, I hope you work at this type of love. Have a good one. Thank you for joining and for sharing this message. Amen.